Jesus, help me!
Are you okay, kid? Look like you're hurt.
I need to tell you something that changed everything I ever believed about this world and the next. Before you scroll past this, before you decide this is just another story from another person on the internet trying to get your attention, I need you to understand one thing. I am not here to entertain you. I am not here to impress you. I am here because I made a promise to myself in a dark motel room when I was 14 years old, shaking and starving and convinced I was going to die, that if I ever made it out alive, I would tell everyone exactly what happened to me. Not the police report version. Not the news headline version. Not the watered-down, cleaned-up version that adults tell because they think the real truth is too heavy for people to carry. I'm going to tell you the version that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning with my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my teeth. I am going to tell you about the smell of that room, the sound of the locks clicking every night, the way fear tastes like metal in the back of your throat when you realize no one is coming for you and no one even knows where you are. And then I am going to tell you about the voice. The voice that came out of nowhere. The voice that should not have existed. The voice that saved my life. My name is Marcus James Thompson. I was born on March 14th in Columbus, Ohio, and I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city with my mother, Denise Thompson, who worked harder than any human being I have ever known. My father left before I could form any real memories of him, which means I spent most of my childhood wondering what I had done wrong to make him go, even though my mother told me 1,000 times it had nothing to do with me. But you know how kids are. You tell them it is not their fault and they nod and say they understand, but somewhere deep inside their chest, there is a little voice whispering, maybe if you had been better, maybe if you had been quieter, maybe if you had been more lovable. That voice stayed with me for a long time. I was a good kid. I want you to understand that, not because I am trying to brag, but because it matters for what happened next. I did not smoke. I did not drink. I did not run with the wrong crowd or stay out past curfew or give my mother any reason to worry about me. She had enough on her plate already, working double shifts at the distribution warehouse just to keep the lights on and food in the refrigerator, and I figured the least I could do was stay out of trouble and make her life a little bit easier. Every Saturday she worked from noon until 10 at night, sometimes later if they needed extra hands on the floor. That left me alone for most of the day, and since our apartment building was not exactly the safest place for a kid to hang around by himself, she gave me money for the bus and told me to spend my time at Riverside Mall. Stay inside, she would say every single week, pressing a $20 bill into my palm. Get yourself some food, walk around, read books at the bookstore if you want, but do not go outside, do not talk to strangers, and call me every 2 hours so I know you are okay. I followed those rules religiously. For almost a year, I followed those rules. And then came the Saturday that destroyed everything. It was October 17th. I remember the date because it was exactly 3 weeks before my 15th birthday, and I had been saving up money from odd jobs around the neighborhood to buy myself a new pair of headphones. The ones I had were falling apart, the left ear barely producing any sound, and I had my eye on a pair at the electronics store that cost $67 plus tax. I was so close. I had $53 in my pocket that day, which meant I only needed a few more weeks of raking leaves and taking out trash for the elderly couple down the hall before I could finally have something nice. Something that was mine, something that worked the way it was supposed to. It is funny, is it not? The things you remember from the worst days of your life. I remember the exact amount of money in my pocket. I remember the song that was playing in the food court, some pop song with a heavy bass line that I could not stand but could not stop humming. I remember the taste of the orange chicken I had for dinner, sweet and tangy with a little bit of spice that made my nose run. I remember looking at my phone and seeing that it was 6:47 in the evening. And I remember stepping outside. That was my mistake. That was the moment everything went wrong. The food court was crowded that night, packed with families and teenagers and little kids running around with balloons tied to their wrists, and the noise was making it impossible to hear anything. My mother had called me twice, but both times the connection was terrible, her voice cutting in and out like she was speaking through a wall of static. I told her I would call her back in a few minutes, and she said okay, and that was the last time I heard her voice for 11 days. I stepped outside through the side exit near the loading dock, the one that led to the employee parking lot. I know now that I should have gone to the main entrance where there were more people, more lights, more witnesses, but I was not thinking about safety. I was thinking about finding a quiet spot where I could hear my mother clearly and tell her about my day and ask her if she wanted me to order her some food for when she picked me up. I was thinking about headphones. I was thinking about orange chicken. I was thinking about everything except the black SUV that was parked 20 feet away with its engine running. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. That was when I heard him. "Hey, kid." I looked up. There was a man walking toward me, maybe 40 years old, with a clean-shaven face and short brown hair and a navy blue jacket that said security across the chest in big yellow letters. He was smiling, not in a creepy way, just in a normal, friendly, "I need your help with something" kind of way that made me relax immediately. "Yeah," I said. "You shop here a lot, right?" He stopped about 6 feet away from me, keeping his distance, acting completely non-threatening. "I think I have seen you around before. I come here on Saturdays sometimes." He nodded like that made perfect sense. "Listen, I could really use your help with something. We found a wallet in the parking lot about an hour ago, and we have been trying to figure out who it belongs to. There's no ID inside, just some cash and a gift card, but we pulled security footage, and we think it might belong to someone your age. Any chance you could take a look at the video and tell us if you recognize the kid?" I hesitated. Something in my gut tightened just a little bit, like a warning signal trying to get my attention. But I looked at his jacket, at the official-looking badge clipped to his belt, at the way he stood with his hands visible and his posture relaxed, and I told myself I was being paranoid. This was a security guard. This was his job. He was asking for help, not trying to hurt me. Sure," I said. "Where is the video?" "Right over here," he gestured toward the SUV. "We have a laptop in the car with the footage. Should only take a minute." I took 3 steps toward him before my instincts screamed at me to stop. Something was wrong. Security guards did not keep laptops in random SUVs in the parking lot. Security guards had offices inside the mall with monitors and cameras and other people around. Security guards did not approach kids alone in empty parking lots and ask them to come to their vehicles. I opened my mouth to say I had changed my mind. I opened my mouth to say I needed to go back inside. I opened my mouth to say anything at all. But before I could speak, something pressed against my face. A cloth, damp and cold, smelling like chemicals and medicine, and something else I could not identify. An arm wrapped around my chest from behind, pinning my arms to my sides, and I realized with horrifying clarity that there had been a second person behind me the whole time. I had never heard them approach. I had never felt them coming. I had been so focused on the man in front of me that I had forgotten to watch my back. The world started spinning. My legs turned to water. My thoughts became fog. My eyes closed against my will, and the last thing I heard before the darkness swallowed me whole was the sound of a car door sliding open and voices murmuring above me like I was already a ghost. "Got him. Let us go. Keep his head down, do not let anyone see his face." And then nothing. I woke up in a room that smelled like mold and cigarettes and something rotten hiding underneath the floorboards. For a long moment, I did not move. I did not open my eyes. I just lay there on a mattress that felt thin and lumpy beneath my back, trying to figure out where I was and how I had gotten there and why my head was pounding like someone had taken a hammer to my skull. And then I remembered. The parking lot. The security jacket. The cloth over my face. My eyes flew open and I sat up so fast that the room spun around me like a carnival ride. I had to press my hands against the mattress to keep myself from falling over, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps that made my chest ache. "Calm down." The voice came from across the room. I turned my head and saw a woman sitting in a plastic chair by the door. She was maybe 50 years old, with gray-streaked brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and a face that looked like it had seen too many hard years. She was wearing jeans and a faded flannel shirt, and she was watching me with an expression that was somehow both bored and alert at the same time. "Where am I?" My voice came out cracked and hoarse like I had been screaming for hours. Maybe I had been. "What is going on? Where is my mom?" "You are safe," the woman said, but the words sounded hollow coming from her mouth. "Just relax, nobody is going to hurt you." "Where is my phone? I need to call my mom. She's going to be worried. She is going to." "Your phone is gone." The woman stood up and walked toward me slowly, her hands raised like she was approaching a frightened animal. "And you are not going to be making any calls, not for a while." I scrambled backward on the mattress until my back hit the wall. Who are you? What do you want? Why did you take me? The woman sighed like my questions were exhausting her. I told you, you are safe. We are not going to hurt you. But you need to calm down and stop asking so many questions or things are going to get a lot harder for you. Do you understand? I did not understand. I did not understand anything. But I looked at her eyes, cold and empty and completely devoid of mercy, and I realized with a sickening twist in my stomach that arguing was not going to help me. Screaming was not going to help me. Fighting was not going to help me. I was trapped. I was completely and utterly trapped. And there was nothing I could do about it. The room became my entire universe for the next 11 days. It was a motel room, I figured out eventually, small and shabby with peeling wallpaper and stained carpet and a television that did not work. There was a bathroom attached, barely big enough to turn around in, with a toilet that ran constantly and a shower that produced only cold water. The window was covered by thick curtains that blocked out almost all the light, and even when I managed to peek through the gap, I could not see anything useful, just a parking lot and a highway in the distance and nothing that told me where I was. There were two of them, the woman, whose name I never learned, and a man who showed up a few hours after I woke up. He was the one from the parking lot, the one in the security jacket, and when I saw him walk through the door, I felt a surge of hatred so intense it scared me. But I did not say anything. I did not do anything. Because I understood by then that they were in control of everything, my food, my water, my sleep, my survival, and the only way I was going to make it through this was to be quiet and cooperative and wait for an opportunity to escape. They watched me constantly. One of them was always in the room, always awake, always sitting in that plastic chair by the door with their eyes fixed on me like I was a package they were waiting to deliver. They talked to each other in low voices that I could not quite hear, and sometimes they made phone calls in the bathroom with the door closed, and sometimes they left for a few minutes to get food or smoke cigarettes outside the door. But never long enough for me to do anything. Never long enough for me to run. I ate when they told me to eat, which was not often. A cold burger here, a bag of chips there, just enough to keep me alive, but never enough to fill the gnawing emptiness in my stomach. I slept when they told me to sleep, which was whenever they decided the lights were going off, regardless of whether my body was tired or not. I spoke when they spoke to me, and even then I kept my answers short and careful, because I had learned very quickly that saying the wrong thing made them angry. And when they were angry, they reminded me how easy it would be to make things worse. You are lucky, the man told me once on maybe the 4th or 5th day. He was eating a sandwich from a gas station, the smell of bread and processed meat filling the room, while I sat on the mattress with my stomach growling so loudly I was sure he could hear it. There are people in this business who would not treat you nearly as nice as we do. You should be grateful. I stared at my hands and said nothing. What was there to say? Thank you for kidnapping me. Thank you for taking me away from my mother. Thank you for keeping me locked in a room that smells like death while you wait to sell me to someone or kill me or do whatever it is you are planning to do. I said nothing, and the days kept passing. The loneliness was the worst part. Worse than the hunger, worse than the fear, worse than the uncertainty of not knowing what was going to happen to me or when. The loneliness wrapped around my chest like a snake and squeezed tighter with every hour that passed until I could barely breathe from the weight of it. I thought about my mother constantly. I imagined her coming home from work that Saturday night, tired and sore, expecting to find me waiting in the food court with a smile on my face and a box of leftover orange chicken for her dinner. I imagined her walking through the mall, calling my name, checking the bookstore and the arcade and the benches near the fountain where I sometimes sat to people watch. I imagined her realizing I was not there. I imagined her pulling out her phone and calling me once, twice, 10 times, 20 times, each call going straight to voicemail because my phone was gone and I was gone and she had no way of knowing where I was. I imagined her going to the police. I imagined her filing a missing persons report. I imagined her sitting in our apartment alone, staring at my empty bedroom, wondering if I was alive or dead. I imagined her crying. That was what broke me. Not my own pain. Not my own fear. My mother's pain. My mother's fear. The thought of her suffering because of me, because I had been stupid enough to step outside, stupid enough to trust a stranger in a security jacket, stupid enough to get myself taken, that thought was a knife in my chest that twisted deeper every single day. On the seventh night, I lay awake in the dark and cried for the first time since I was a little boy. I buried my face in the thin pillow so they would not hear me, and I sobbed until my body shook and my throat burned and there were no more tears left inside me. I cried for my mother and for myself and for the life I was probably never going to get back. And when the crying stopped, I did something I had never really done before. I prayed. Not out loud, not with any fancy words or religious formulas, just a whisper, barely audible even to my own ears, addressed to a God I was not even sure existed. God, please, if you are real, if you are listening, please do not leave me here. Please help me go home. Please help my mom find me. Please, please, please. I repeated that word over and over until it lost all meaning, until it became just a sound, a rhythm, a heartbeat. Please. 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 And somewhere in the middle of that desperate, formless prayer, I fell asleep. I do not know how long I slept, but I know exactly what woke me up. It was a hand on my shoulder. Not grabbing, not shaking, just resting there warm and solid like someone was trying to let me know they were present without startling me awake. My eyes flew open. The room was dark, the curtains were closed. The woman was asleep in the chair by the door, her head tilted back and her mouth slightly open, soft snoring sounds escaping with every breath. But I could feel someone standing beside my mattress. I could feel them as surely as I could feel the fabric beneath my back or the air in my lungs. Someone was there. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might explode out of my chest. I wanted to scream, wanted to roll away, wanted to do something, but my body was frozen in place, paralyzed by a fear so intense it was almost physical. And then I heard the voice. It came from behind my left ear, soft and calm and impossibly close, like someone was kneeling right beside me and whispering directly into my brain. Stand up. I stopped breathing. The voice was not angry, it was not frightening. It was not anything like the voices of the people who had taken me, harsh and cold and empty of any real human feeling. This voice was warm. This voice was gentle. This voice sounded like someone who loved me more than I could possibly understand. Stand up, it said again, you need to move. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing, trying to figure out what was happening. Was I dreaming? Was I hallucinating from the stress and the hunger and the lack of sleep? Was I losing my mind completely, finally cracking under the pressure of everything I had been through? But the voice did not feel like a dream. The voice felt more real than anything I had ever experienced in my entire life. Stand up. It was not a command, it was an invitation, a gentle push in the right direction. And something inside me, something deep and instinctive and impossible to explain, told me to listen. I pushed myself up from the mattress, moving as slowly and quietly as I possibly could. My eyes darted to the woman in the chair, terrified that any sound would wake her, but she did not stir. She just kept snoring, oblivious, like she had been drugged or enchanted or somehow placed into a sleep deeper than any natural rest. I stood there in the darkness, my legs trembling beneath me, and waited. The window. The voice again, coming from everywhere and nowhere, filling the room without making any actual sound. I turned toward the window. For the past week, I had studied that window obsessively, looking for any possible way to escape. It was a standard motel window, the kind with a single pane of glass and a metal latch on the inside, but the man had screwed it shut on the first night. He had used a power drill and long screws that went deep into the frame, and he had checked those screws every single day to make sure they were still tight. There was no way to open that window. I had tried. I had tried so many times, pressing my fingers against the latch until they ached, praying for even a millimeter of movement, and nothing had ever happened. But the voice said the window. So I walked to the window. My feet made no sound on the carpet. My breathing was shallow and controlled. I reached out with shaking hands and touched the latch. It moved. It moved like there had never been any screws at all, like the frame was brand new and perfectly oiled, like someone had come in while I was sleeping and removed every single obstacle that stood between me and freedom. The latch slid open with a soft click. I stood there staring at it, my brain refusing to process what had just happened. That was impossible. That was physically, mechanically, absolutely impossible. I had felt those screws with my own fingers. I had seen them with my own eyes. But the window was open. Go. The voice again, gentle but urgent now, pushing me forward. Someone will see you. I pushed the window open as wide as it would go and looked outside. The parking lot was empty. The night was dark and cold, lit only by a few distant streetlights and the pale glow of a half-moon. Below me, maybe 12 or 15 feet down, was a strip of concrete and a row of scraggly bushes that lined the edge of the building. It was a second-floor drop. Far enough to hurt. Maybe far enough to break something. I looked back at the woman in the chair, still sleeping, still unaware. I looked at the door, locked from the inside, impossible to open without waking her. I looked at the window, my only way out, and I felt the fear rising up in my throat like bile. I was so scared. I was so incredibly, paralyzingly scared. But I thought of my mother. I thought of her sitting alone in our apartment, crying, praying, hoping against hope that her son was still alive. And I realized that fear was not a good enough reason to stay. I climbed up onto the windowsill, my whole body shaking, and I swung my legs over the edge. I gripped the frame with both hands and lowered myself down as far as I could go, my arms screaming with the effort, my muscles weak from days without proper food or exercise. And then I let go. The fall lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I hit the ground hard, harder than I expected, and the impact knocked the air out of my lungs and sent a shockwave of pain through my ankles and knees and hips. I collapsed onto my side, gasping, seeing stars, convinced for a terrible moment that I had broken both my legs and this was all for nothing. But I moved my feet. I moved my legs. Everything hurt, but everything worked. I was alive. I was outside. I was free. I tried to stand up, but my body was not cooperating. I managed to get to my hands and knees, and I was about to force myself upright when I heard footsteps running toward me. My heart stopped. They had heard me, they had woken up. They were coming to drag me back inside and punish me for trying to escape, and I was never going to see my mother again. Hey, oh my God, are you okay? It was a woman's voice, but not the woman from the room. This voice was different, higher, younger, filled with genuine concern. I looked up and saw a figure running across the parking lot toward me, a woman in scrubs with a lanyard around her neck and keys jangling in her hand. She dropped to her knees beside me, her eyes wide with shock, and put her hands on my shoulders like she was trying to make sure I was real. What happened? Did you fall? Are you hurt? Please, I gasped, and my voice sounded foreign to my own ears, cracked and broken and desperate. Please help me. They took me. They have been keeping me in that room. Please call the police. Please do not let them take me back. The woman's face went pale. For a moment, she just stared at me, and I could see her processing my words, putting together the pieces, understanding exactly what I was telling her. Then she pulled out her phone. It is okay, she said, already dialing. It is okay. I am calling right now. You are safe. No one is going to take you anywhere. I promise you are safe. She wrapped one arm around my shoulders and pulled me close, shielding me with her body while she spoke rapidly into the phone, giving the address and describing the situation and telling them to send police immediately. And I cried. I sat there in the cold parking lot of a rundown motel, wrapped in the arms of a stranger, and I cried like I had never cried before in my life. The police arrived in what felt like seconds. Sirens filled the night. Blue and red lights painted the walls of the motel in alternating flashes of color. Officers swarmed the building, their voices loud and authoritative, shouting commands and banging on doors. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Someone asked me if I needed medical attention. Someone told me I was safe now, that it was over, that I was going home. I watched from the back of an ambulance as they brought the man and the woman out of the motel room in handcuffs. The man was struggling, yelling about his rights, demanding to know what was happening. The woman was silent, her face blank, her eyes staring straight ahead like she was already somewhere else entirely. I felt nothing when I saw them. No anger, no fear, no satisfaction. Just a deep, profound exhaustion that settled into my bones like lead. It was over. It was finally over. The nurse's name was Angela Williams. I learned that later at the hospital when she came to check on me after her shift started. She was 29 years old, a registered nurse in the emergency department, and she had been walking to work when she saw me fall from the window. "I always take the main entrance," she told me, sitting in a chair beside my hospital bed while my mother held my hand and cried and refused to let go of me for even a second. "Every single night for 3 years I have walked the same route. But tonight I do not know. Something told me to go around the back. I cannot explain it. It was like someone grabbed my arm and pulled me in a different direction." She looked at me with something in her eyes that I recognized. Wonder. Belief. "I was supposed to find you," she said quietly. "I do not know how or why, but I was supposed to be there at that exact moment. Someone wanted me to find you." I nodded. I understood exactly what she meant. When the police interviewed me, I told them everything, every detail, every moment, every single thing I could remember about the room and the people who took me and the 11 days of hell I had endured. And when they asked me how I escaped, I told them that too. "I heard a voice," I said. "It woke me up and told me to stand up. It told me to go to the window. I do not know who it was or where it came from, but it was real. I know it was real." The detective writing down my statement paused and looked at me for a long moment. "You are saying someone else was in the room with you?" "No," I said. "There was no one else in the room, but someone spoke to me. Someone told me what to do. Someone helped me." The detective nodded slowly, wrote something in his notebook, and moved on to the next question. I knew he did not believe me. I knew he thought I was confused, traumatized, making things up to cope with what had happened. But I did not care. I knew what I heard. I knew what I felt. I knew that someone had been in that room with me, and that voice, that presence, that unexplainable force had saved my life. The doctors could not explain why I woke up so alert after days of exhaustion and malnutrition. The police could not explain how the window screws had come loose when they had been checked just hours before. Angela Williams could not explain why she changed her route that night after 3 years of walking the same path. None of it made sense. None of it fit into the neat, logical boxes that adults like to put things in. But I knew. I knew with a certainty that went beyond logic, beyond evidence, beyond anything I could prove in a court of law. God had spoken to me. God had saved me. God had sent someone to find me at the exact moment I needed to be found. My mother never let me out of her sight for months after I came home. She quit her job at the warehouse and found a new one with better hours, one that let her be home when I got back from school and spend weekends with me instead of leaving me alone at the mall. She started going to church, something she had not done since before I was born, and she prayed every night, thanking God for bringing me back to her. I went to therapy. A lot of therapy. I talked about the fear, the loneliness, the helplessness. I talked about the nightmares that plagued me for years, waking me up in the middle of the night convinced I was still in that motel room with the locked door and the screwed-shut window. I talked about the guilt I felt for stepping outside, for trusting the wrong person, for putting myself in a situation that never should have happened. And slowly, painfully, gradually I healed. Not completely, not perfectly. There are scars that never fully fade, wounds that never fully close, parts of myself that were damaged in ways that cannot be undone. But I healed enough. Enough to finish school. Enough to go to college. Enough to build a life that the people who took me tried to steal from me. Enough to fall in love, get married, have children of my own who will never know the horror of what their father went through unless they read these words. I am 31 years old now. 17 years have passed since that night. And I still remember every single detail of the voice that saved my life. I remember the warmth of it. I remember the gentleness of it. I remember the way it felt like coming home, like being wrapped in the arms of someone who loved me unconditionally, like being told without words that I was not alone and never had been. I have told this story many times over the years, to friends, to family, to strangers who asked how I got the small scar on my ankle from when I landed on a piece of broken glass in that parking lot. Some people believe me. Some people think I imagined it. Some people nod politely and change the subject because they do not know what to say. But I keep telling it anyway. Because here is what I have learned in the 17 years since I escaped from that motel room. Miracles are real. I know that is a big claim. I know it sounds naive and simplistic and like something a child would say, but I was in a situation where there was no logical way out. The window was screwed shut. My captors were awake and watching. No one knew where I was. No one was coming for me. And yet I got out. The window opened. My captors slept through everything. A nurse walked a route she had never walked before and found me at the exact moment I needed to be found. Those are not coincidences. Those are not lucky breaks. Those are not statistical anomalies that happen to line up perfectly by chance. Those are miracles. And I believe with every fiber of my being that they came from a God who heard the prayer of a terrified 14-year-old boy and answered it in ways that I still cannot fully comprehend. Faith is not just something you feel on Sunday mornings. Before I was taken, I did not really think about God much. My mother was not religious, and I had grown up without any real connection to faith or spirituality or anything beyond the physical world I could see and touch and measure. But that night in the motel room, when I had nothing left, no hope, no plan, no way out, I found myself reaching for something beyond myself. I found myself talking to a God I was not even sure existed, asking for help I had no reason to expect. And he answered. Not in the way I expected. Not with angels descending from the sky or walls crumbling down like in the Bible stories, but with a voice, quiet and calm and persistent, telling me exactly what I needed to do. Faith is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting that someone bigger than you is listening, even when you cannot see them. It is about reaching out in the darkness and believing that there is a hand waiting to grab yours. I know that now. I will never stop knowing it. You are never truly alone. This is the message I want to leave you with, the reason I have told you everything, the point of this entire story. No matter what you are going through, no matter how dark your situation seems, how hopeless your circumstances feel, how certain you are that there is no way out, you are not alone. There is something beyond what you can see. There is someone listening to your prayers, even the ones you do not know how to put into words. There is a voice that will guide you if you are willing to listen. I know because I heard it. I heard it in a motel room in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by people who wanted to destroy me at the lowest point of my entire life. And it led me home. If you are reading this and you are struggling, if you are in a dark place, if you feel trapped, if you have given up hope, I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And ask. Ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for strength, ask for whatever you need in whatever words come to you, even if they are just please repeated over and over until it stops meaning anything. Someone is listening. I promise you someone is listening. And when the answer comes, and it will come, though maybe not in the way you expect, I want you to have the courage to listen, to stand up when the voice tells you to stand up, to move when the voice tells you to move, to trust that the path you cannot see is leading somewhere better than where you are now. I was a 14-year-old boy from Ohio who got into a stranger's car and thought his life was over. But it was not over. It was just beginning. And so is yours. To the man and woman who took me, you are both in prison now, serving sentences that will keep you locked away for most of your remaining lives. I do not hate you anymore. I stopped hating you years ago because holding on to that poison was only hurting me. But I want you to know that you failed. You tried to break me and you failed. You tried to take my future and you failed. You tried to make me a victim and instead you made me a survivor. I hope you think about that every single day. To Angela Williams, the nurse who found me, you saved my life. I know you think you were just in the right place at the right time, but I believe you were put there by something bigger than either of us. Thank you for running toward a stranger in the dark. Thank you for staying with me until help arrived. Thank you for being the hands of God when I needed them most. I hope you know that you are a hero, even if you never feel like one. To my mother, Denise Thompson, I am sorry for every moment of pain I caused you. I am sorry for every night you spent not knowing if your son was alive or dead. I am sorry for stepping outside when you told me to stay in. But I hope you know that your love was what kept me going. When I was lying in that dark room, starving and terrified and convinced I was going to die, I thought of you. I thought of your smile and your laugh and the way you used to sing old songs while you cooked dinner. I thought of everything you sacrificed to give me a good life, and I told myself I could not give up because you needed me to come home. You are the reason I survived. You are the reason I kept fighting. I love you more than words could ever express. And to whoever is reading this, wherever you are, whatever you are facing, I want you to know that your story is not over. There are going to be moments in your life when everything seems hopeless. When the door is locked and the window is sealed and there is no one coming to save you. When you cry out for help and the only answer is silence. But silence is not the end. Silence is just the space before the voice speaks. So wait. Listen. Believe. Because somewhere out there, beyond the walls of whatever room you are trapped in, there is a path to freedom. There is a nurse walking a route she has never walked before. There is a window that is about to open. There is a voice getting ready to whisper in your ear. Stand up. You need to move. Go. Someone will see you. I know because someone saw me. And that someone saved everything. If this story meant something to you, if it touched you in any way, I have one request: share it with someone who needs to hear it. Not for me. Not for any recognition or reward. But because somewhere out there right now, there is a person sitting in their own darkness, convinced that no one cares and nothing will ever get better. And maybe, just maybe, this story will be the voice that wakes them up. The voice that tells them to stand. The voice that tells them to move. The voice that tells them they are not alone. Be that voice for someone else. That is all I ask. That is my call to action. Take this story and pass it on. Because you never know whose life you might save. I did not know that Angela Williams was walking toward me that night. I did not know that my prayer in the dark would be answered in ways I never could have imagined. I did not know that 17 years later, I would be sitting at a computer, writing down every detail of the worst and best night of my life, hoping that my words might reach someone who needs them. But here I am. And here you are. And now you know. God is real. Miracles happen. You are never alone. Stand up. You need to move. Go. Someone will see you.